What's up, guys? It's Mr. Javid, and today we're back on the Pokemon Showdown server, and we're gonna be doing another team building with Jab episode. Yep, frequent, real frequent. I actually really enjoyed doing the last one, and I really enjoyed seeing the engagement because a lot of you guys are like, "Yo, I had no idea the demand for team building was so high," and that's just for the few people who watch it. So I can't imagine how many people who would love that but just don't know it exists. So if you know people who would like this process, please let them know about whether the video, the channel, whatever, and get the word out there, because this is a pretty simple process, and I think team building and seeing your team perform is one of the most rewarding things, another feature, as we're going to be doing Gyarados today, another feature is whoever suggested that Pokemon, similarly how I used to do on my streams, will get the name so I can remember who, and you get some publicity as well, whatever that means to you. But shout outs to Werder Harry, my guy. So Gyarados. I just use my gut on whatever I feel like. Okay, Gyarados is an interesting pick, and he's like, let's see if Gyarados still has some use in OU. So I'm like, okay, you're right. I do want to try that, and obviously Gyarados has two solid abilities in Intimidate and Moxie. I don't think Intimidate is super. I mean, it's sometimes solid in the current meta. But I would say Moxie is a bit better. So let me think. Bounce, and so we're gonna start the process here. And if you didn't see the last video, don't worry, I'll catch you up. So the number one thing before you start building a team in any tier, and I'll say this in the beginning of every video, is make sure that you have a lock on the knowledge within the tier. There are three pillars in competitive Pokemon: knowledge, skill, and awareness. You need to understand all three. The video series is down below. Quick video to explain that. But knowledge is essentially the informational parts of Pokemon. So if you go into building a team, in order for you to follow these other steps, you'll need to know what's in that environment. And what I mean by environment is that metagame, that tier, whether it be VGC, whether it be every Pokemon format has an environment. If it was Draft League, the environment would be your opponent's 13 Pokemon, or however many you get to use in draft. In things like ladders, you have to prepare for an entire tier of Pokemon. So the environment would be, let's say, the 50 Pokemon that are in OU, or however many exist. Sure, you can account for things that are not OU by usage, but you're generally going to be focusing on the Pokemon that are in that immediate environment, because they're in that environment because they get used the most. So that's likely what you're going to be running into. So to kind of recap on that, you need knowledge. You need to play that tier. What I recommend is getting a solid team. You can get plenty of teams in the Academy Discord. Very, very friendly environment. Or from the link in the description of one of my videos. Plenty of places to get teams. So get a solid tested team for that environment already. Use that team, and then in using that team, you start to play and realize, oh, okay, this Pokemon is very, I tend to see this, and I tend to see this set, and I tend to see that. Plus, it's fun, right? And then after that, you'll be able to start the team building process of your own, because now you have information, you have knowledge on what you're expecting to see. So as you're crafting your team, you're like, what am I gonna do for step 2? Oh, I remember seeing this and this. And so I'm gonna give a more, as I'm going through this, it'll make more sense. But yeah, you need knowledge before you start building. And so since I'm very knowledgeable on OU, I can start a team building process. And so phase 1 is going to be to identify the goal. The team must have a goal in mind. So in this case, the goal is to make Dragon Dance or Gyarados be as effective as possible. I haven't selected a set yet, but I'm likely going to be using Dragon Dance. but that's the goal, right? And the goal doesn't have to be building around a specific Pokemon. They're gonna be team building lives where I'll build around a particular play style, so offense, balance, stall, whatever, or to build around a particular strategy like Trick Room, weather, terrain, things of that nature. So you can build around whatever you want, and always, always, always inject who you are into what you do, my guys. You already do it. So as you're creating the team, all I'm doing is providing the framework. So I'm not actually, I'm providing the framework. I'm not, you can still insert, if your name's Bob, insert who you are into your team, you know. So step one is that already done. We've selected what I want to build around. Now the step two, to check what Pokemon or common strategies will stop you from trying to achieve your goal. So I'm using a Dragon Dance variant of Gyarados. I want to sweep people with my Gyarados. I'm gonna elect to use a Earthquake Waterfall set. Just I'm not gonna go too deeply into all of the reasons I chose whatever move set, but let's just say Earthquake Waterfall. Right, Dragon Dance. There we go. And I'm gonna leave it as substitute for now. And as a team builds, you can edit things. Obviously max attack, and because with somebody mentioned speed tier, I'll leave a speed tier link down below. Important speed tiers to consider in OU, but the reason I selected Waterfall plus Earthquake, because you have a plethora of things you could run, right? You could run Earthquake plus Bounce, you could run Waterfall plus Bounce, and all these things. The reason I selected that is to, when I looked at the tier, many of the things that Bounce will hit can switch out. Meaning Bounce is a very strong neutral hit because it's stab and you get that Moxie boost, but because of its 2-turn nature, it can cause for a lot of trickiness. Meaning, you know, the Magearna, the opponent may force you to bounce, go to Magearna, you bounce the Magearna, he volt switches, and you didn't do that much damage. Whereas Earthquake and Waterfall, you can always control that. And then once you pick the set, if I know that, well, Earthquake and Waterfall combination gets walled by grass types, okay, cool. Now I have to, excuse me. Now I have to build a team to support Gyarados in a way where the grass types aren't as problematic. Grass types in this case referring to, remember we're going to use what's in the tier. If you notice, I'm scrolling through the tier. The grass types in OU are Rillaboom, Ferrothorn, and Tangrowth. I want to say, actually maybe Tangrowth is an OU. No, Tangrowth is not OU, but I've seen some. So it's gaining some popularity. So I'll use Tangrowth, but mainly Rillaboom. But in the case of Rillaboom, you can only ever hit it if you have bounce, and then he grassy glides, you bounce, then he switches. Your substitute is broken, and he can just come back in and grassy glide you again. So you're not beating Rillaboom with a bounce anyway. So I figured, okay, let's support Gyarados in that way. So if Rillaboom and Ferrothorn are two of my biggest concerns, remember, we're trying to find out what common strategies are going to stop this. So if my Gyarados is Waterfall and Earthquake, what are some Pokemon that are going to prevent me from sweeping, right? One of which may be something like, we're thinking defensive Pokemon here. Dragonite is something that could come in and beat Gyarados, but Dragonite is pretty low in usage. And if you see a Dragonite, you're not going to try to sweep with a Gyarados unless it's gone or is severely weakened. I've also seen a lot of Dragonites that are running Defog and like Earthquake and Flamethrower and stuff like that. So Gyarados would actually 1v1 a defensive Dragonite. But you would obviously, well, maybe not so obvious. You would not try to set up if the obstacle is still present. So you would not if you got up, you would not. Let's say you're trying to leave your house, you would not walk into the door before you open it, before you use the key to open it. That's a okay example, but it gets the job done. Basically what I'm saying is you put the key in the door, or open it with the knob. You do something before you walk through the door. You don't just walk up to the door, hit your head, and wonder why it's not working. So in the same way, if you see something like a Tangrowth or a Dragonite or something on the opposing team, and you know that this Gyarados set cannot beat that Pokemon, then you don't set up, because that's like walking into a door without turning the knob. You haven't solved the issue yet. So your goal is to figure out a way to solve the issue of Dragonite or a Ferrothorn or a Rillaboom before you start setting up. Hopefully I'm making sense. Slowbro is another thing that could, but we'll discuss that later. So the main things that will stop Gyarados in this case are Slowbro, defensive Zapdos, Ferrothorn. So grass types, defensive Zapdos, and really bulky water types, mainly Slowbro, because other bulky water types generally struggle with breaking Gyarados to substitute. That's why I substitute here for things like Toxapex. You can just Earthquake spam and it can't really just beat you 1v1. So you have the advantage there. So we have identified the Topsicle. So a cool partner is going to be Magnezone here, primarily to eradicate Ferrothorn every time. Because Ferrothorn is one of Gyarados' biggest, like, no matter what Gyarados set it always beats Gyarados. And so that's something you don't want. And what Magnezone does is it assists with Slowbro, offensively. It assists with Zapdos, because many Zapdos are running Hurricane plus Electric move, and some of them don't have Heat Wave. So sometimes Magnezone, straight up just takes on Zapdos. It traps Ferrothorn. Or the other two, Rillaboom, which doesn't run, it rarely runs, what am I trying to say, ground moves. Runs superpower sometimes if it's banded, but your Magnezone is not your Rillaboom switching. What we discussed in the last video is this is your offensive core. I probably should have said that in the beginning. There's so many things to consider. I'm gonna build this out a bit more so I don't forget. So okay, let's kind of refresh. So you have to have the knowledge first before you start building. You can learn through watching videos, so you may have a knowledge of what things do just from watching, and so that's a thing. So you can learn through secondhand or firsthand. I recommend both. So once you have the knowledge, then you're gonna start with this. So you identify the goal. Now, the way I'm gonna teach for more beginning trainers is we're gonna separate your 6 Pokemon into two categories. Your first 3 are gonna be your offensive core, meaning this core is designed to take as much value from your opponent as possible. If you don't know what value is, everything is in the description down below. Use the resources, guys. It's literally there for you guys. If you don't use it, you can only blame yourself, right? So very short, simple videos on value, and it will go over that, and all this will make sense. So the goal of your offensive core is to take value from the opponent, do damage. Another way to word it is take money from your opponent. So when you go into a battle, both of you have a finite amount of money, and the goal is to take all your opponent's money. That's how you win. When all his money has been taken, you win, right? If your money's taken by the opponent, you lose. And so your goal of your offensive core is to take as much money as possible. So not because Magnezone is a steel type means you switch Magnezone into a choice banded Rillaboom. Why? Because what's Magnezone's job, right? It's in the offensive core, meaning its job is not to be switching in and taking hits. It is a very simple thing, but I want to emphasize, and I'm going to be sprinkling battle tips in, because you can actually have a good team, but you're not very good at battling, and so the team looks bad because you're not playing well. But the team in and of itself isn't bad, And also, you can be a solid battler, but your teams suck, but you can win because you know how to play. And so, a phrase that we used to say a lot back in the day is the team is only as good as the player, right? And so, keep that in mind as Magnezone is going to be here. And this Magnezone's role is to trap Ferrothorn. And the set that's going to generally do that consistently with no drawback is going to be the Iron Defense Body Press set. So, Thunderbolt, Body Press, Iron Defense, and Substitute. And what's also dope about this is once it starts boosting, it generally gets either another kill straight up or another big hit off, because by the time Ferrothorn, because you may get +6 defense depending on what the opponent has, and so you may end up KOing his Garchomp after the fact, or KOing his whatever he has to switch into to break your substitute, right? And body press, once it starts getting boosted, is quite strong. So I don't have a super specific spread for this. I just run one that my subscribers have passed to me, which is like a little faster than Heatran with no like specially defensive Heatran, and then just general HP. There could be a better spread for this. I don't think it's that important. But if there's a better spread, modify it as you so choose, or leave what you think is a better spread in the description. In the comment section down below, and then let me know your reasonings. I don't know everything, so generally, kind of using the team is only as good as the player rule. When you hit a certain point, you can win with almost any team. So, if you get to a point where you don't have to worry as much about the EVs, or if you notice when you guys pass me teams, I don't generally check them. Sometimes I'll check them like as I'm playing, and I'm only able to do that because I know what I'm doing as far as battling. So there's just very little a person can do. Sometimes it can matter, but majority of the time you can trump the team with some skill. Not always, but it'll be better. And so I want you guys to be great team builders and great players, because I want the academy to be filled with 3-star players, like at least 1 star. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check the community posts where I put up the rankings of the type levels of players. But 1 star, your top 100 on a relevant ladder. 2-star, top 10, 3-star, you're number 1. So we want 3-star players in this academy. So Magnezone is there to remove some of the core nuisances to Gyarados. So phenomenal partner. It was a pretty common partner back in the day. So we still are going to be struggling with a few things, but our defensive backbone may assist with that. And so with these two, we still can't really reliably remove something like Slowbro, because remember, Slowbro isn't going to stay in. And so we have to figure out, okay, how can we solve the problem? Gyarados still would struggle with a Heat Wave Zapdos, because the reason I say struggle is because it has static, and you don't want to get static, and Waterfall is not even a 2-hit KO. So you want to weaken or bait in Zapdos. So how can we solve this problem? And somebody asked me this: how do we figure out how to solve the problem? I'll put his comment right there. Hopefully I remember, because I copy pasted it, because I think it was a very good comment. Problem solving is all Pokemon is. Like, throughout the battle, all you're doing is trying to solve the problem. You're like, okay, I want to take his value, I want to take his money. How can I effectively do that? Who can effectively do that? What strategies? That's all it is. And in team building, that's all you're trying to do as well. And so experience will play a role in problem solving. But also, guys, at the end of the day, let's say I say right now, okay, my way of solving the Slowbro issue will be, for example, let's say I'm going to lure it in and toxic it. Okay, what Pokemon baits in Slowbro? Melmetal, for example. Let me see. Melmetal baits in Slowbro. Melmetal baits in sometimes Zapdos. Melmetal baits in Moltres. Melmetal baits in Swampert. I think Melmetal gets access to Toxic. I know because it's a new Pokemon. But I think with Pokemon, not Go, Let's Go, it got Toxic. I'll check in a sec. Let's just use kind of the, because we're going into step 3 right now, which is identify what Pokemon or strategies can aid. So that's after we found out that Ferrothorn, Slowbro, Zapdos, things of that nature, grass types are a problem. We're identifying what can assist with that. So let's say I go, okay, I know that, so it does get toxic, right? So I'm saying, okay, I know that Melmetal baits in Slowbro, and if I want to overwhelm my opponent, I may go, okay, I'm going to put a supporting member. Now you're like, well, damn, isn't that 2 steel types? That's irrelevant. As long as it solves the problem, it doesn't matter too much about type overlaps. Because as long as the team works, sometimes you need to have 2 types, sometimes you don't, sometimes don't get too caught up in that, okay? It's the thing that trumps all thing is, does it solve the problem I'm trying to solve? Not does the typing. And look how the synergy works here as well. Melmetal with this strategy, because Magnezone is such a common, maybe because Ferrothorn is such a nuisance to Melmetal generally, this allows for you to double Iron Bash more freely, because Toxapex, and Ferrothorn are generally the only 2 things that can switch into double Iron Bash and take a Toxic, because, you know, they're steel and poison types. But everything else can get Toxic, and Zapdos likes switching into Melmetal. So, for example, if you're going to go, okay, I'm going to have, you know, double Iron Bash here, and, you know, Earthquake here, and Toxic here, and let's say it's that Toxic Protect set, right? If you know Slowbro is their most likely switching, right? If you know Slowbro is very common, all these things, or Hippowdon or whatever, right? Because Melmetal baits in a lot of bulky grounds as well, which also assists Magnezone. So you see the synergy, even though they're have the same weaknesses, they're both steel types. Offensively, their job is not to be switch-ins for things. The last 3 members, which is the defensive core, will be the switch-ins. So does it solve the problem? Right? And I kind of want to use a more unconventional way of going about this, because I want to break people free from the feeling like I have to use the same 6 Pokemon. So, excuse me, I'm trying to keep this one at 30 minutes. So, step 3, identify. Now, if you notice, step 4 is start putting together a rough draft to avoid being trapped in perfection paralysis. So, if I did right now, I'm like, okay, I need to check every possible outcome before I put my 6 Pokemon. I'll be here for an hour and a half. And that's a more thorough process. And I'll release like a really long team building process at some point, just to show you how to do that one. But for the beginning episodes, I want them to be, you know, something you can get in, get out, get the value. And so we're going to use this, and this is called the overwhelming principle. This is the same principle that Rain is probably the most typical method, and Hyper Offense uses this as well. The overwhelm method is, let's say that you have, okay, let's use Rain for example. If you notice, Rain tends to have multiple water type Pokemon, right? Rain uses the overwhelm principle, meaning you may look at your team and say, well, Ferrothorn is good versus Rain, right? Which isn't false. That's true. What a Rain team may end up doing is say, okay, your Ferrothorn is a problem. I'll acknowledge that. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of the conventional way of thinking is okay, well, Ferrothorn resists water, so I'm going to try to predict the Ferrothorn and go for something that's super effective. If the opponent has, say, a Kingdra in, he may go for a rain boosted specs Hydro Pump on your Ferrothorn, and that may do, 40%. Now you may be thinking, okay, well, he has to switch out now because water is resisted by grass, but your Ferrothorn can't one hit KO his Kingdra. So your opponent may Hydro Pump again, take another 40. So now you're at so you took 40, got some leftovers, so you're at 60 something. So now you're almost you're almost within range where he can kill you. So let's say you lead seeded because you predicted that, right? You lead seeded there. He just Hydro Pumps again. Now your Ferrothorn is at 20%, and you Power Whip, get the lead seed damage. And let's say you do beat the Kingdra before he beats you. Your Ferrothorn is now at, let's say, 20% in the red, or 30%, very low, so it can't switch into his other water types. So your biggest water counter is now weakened because he overwhelmed your resist with something that you thought was going to counter it. And that generally works on things that you can't recover with, or you'll see stuff like on offense, they'll Swords Dance, you bring in your Hippowdon, they sacrifice, for example, they sacrifice Bisharp to get your Hippowdon down to 80%. I mean, like you take 80 off your Hippowdon or something, or take 70%. Now his whatever else he has that would have been walled by Hippowdon, like Cinderace or something, can now take you out because he used Bisharp as a sacrificial lamb to take the value from your Hippowdon. And so now your Hippowdon has too much that it has to do in one game. And so it uses one thing to sacrifice so that it can open up for another thing that is way more dangerous, like Cinderace, for example. So that's the same principle here, the overwhelm principle. And so because these two bait in similar Pokemon, they can actually end up supporting each other while at the same time supporting Gyarados, because Magnezone gets rid of the steel types, because Corviknight, like a bulk up Corviknight, could be pretty problematic for Gyarados as well. A Melmetal would need to be weakened for Gyarados as well. And then, Melmetal baits in Zapdos, which gets Toxic, which we said that Gyarados didn't like. So that's one that it baits in already. Melmetal baits in Ferrothorn, which allows for Magnezone to trap it. Melmetal baits in bulky grounds like Landorus, bulky waters like Slowbro, bulky waters like Swampert. And if Swampert's toxic, don't you think Magnezone's going to have a little easier of a time? So stuff like that, right? And so just kind of wrapping out the team. So I'm actually really excited to use this one. I don't know too much about Melmetal spreads. Holy shit, Melmetal has a lot of HP. I didn't know it was this high. No wonder this thing doesn't die. Check this out, guys. I mean, I'm sure y'all probably know this, but like Melmetal's defense is as high as its attack. Like, it never hit me that his defense was that high. I knew it was good, but like this thing is like way better than I thought it was. Like when I actually look at the stats, because it's been around for a while, since last year, like this time last year, when Pokemon Home was released, and I'm like, I didn't take too much. I know it's strong, blah blah blah. Never struggled with it, obviously, so I never thought much of it. And then I looked at its HP, and I'm like, holy crap! No wonder this thing is eating hits. So I can't really say what the best Melmetal set is. I'm just going to pump some stuff in this special defense because it's so bulky anyway. That's all there is, and we're gonna run enough speed to outspeed Toxapex. Let's say we'll run a little more. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter too much. Like we can Earthquake Pex. I'm sure some attack investment is necessary and all that. For what its job is, I don't think it will matter too much. But there's probably a spread where I run enough attack to 2 KO Pex or something. Though, I don't even think that's true. But we'll see. We'll see. this is where the testing phase comes in. And so to round out the defensive core, we look at this and say, okay, well, if Gyarados' goal is not to switch into fire, not to really switch into anything, and the offensive core's goal is not really. Melmetal is a weird mid ground, so Melmetal is not. It's half in the offensive core and half in the defensive core. I say half one because it doesn't have a recovery move, and it's also kind of offensive, but it's kind of defensive. That's what's called a tank. But as long as it gets the job done, it's fine. So currently we have no good electric switching. We have no good ghost switching. We have no good dark switching. We have no good fire switching. As again, Gyarados should not be switching into strong fire types. That's not his job. So as far as I'm concerned, we have no switch-ins to anything. Melmetal is an interesting mid-ground again because it can switch into certain things. Magnezone obviously will come in to trap Ferrothorn, but beyond that, right? And so now we start putting things together. And a quick one I could do to make this simple could be... what's a quick Soaking Galarian form it's such an interesting mod, right? It doesn't really. What's a good kind of catch-all defensive core that will still provide whoever wants to use this team with some momentum? Because I am considering you guys as I'm building this. And I know, like, for a newer player trying to learn, like, U-turning and volt switching, these things are important because non-momentum based teams are very... I think Swampert might be a good partner here. Provides ground, gives me rocks. But it also has flip turn, which I think will be important because Swampert baits in Ferrothorn. Swampert baits in a lot of stuff Magnezone likes to match up versus. Swampert baits in, because you generally baits in things that don't want to get toxic. So it baits in Pex, Ferrothorn, things of that nature. Again, this is a rough draft core. Let me think. Swampert. What would I want? Swampert and it's a good one here. Let's try Cliff there, and let's see what that. Oh, so I'm gonna rough draft that because I'm just thinking, okay, what? It's a general because I want Wish on Clef for these two, so you can have some support. You could run Teleport, Wish, Clef. You could run these three can all pivot, and Clef basing again a lot of the same things. Another cool Clef set is actually Calm Mind, Thunderbolt. So I'm just scrolling through the tier to see, like, okay, is there anything I am missing here? This is a little Cinderace susceptible, but Cinderace is unless you have Hippowdon and Toxapex, you don't have a Cinderace counter. Blander is not a counter. It will Slowbro too. So there are only few straight up counters to Cinderace. Everything else can get statused and eventually with the right move beaten. Even like Banded Cinderace, for example, the only thing it can't muscle through is Slowbro. I mean, U-turn can help, but Slowbro again, it can even muscle through Hippo. Like Cinderace is really difficult to counter. Probably Pex and Slowbro are going to be your two best bets. Not even Hippowdon, because HJK Banded 2 KOs Hippo. Because I used to be Hippo all the time back before it was banned. So this is just a rough thing. Let me see. Because I could give you guys Lando instead of Swampert, just like the last team. and Lando would provide a little more leeway with Cinderace. Swampert's great for. I like Swampert's ability to flip turn and toxic. Swampert's annoying to switch into for what we have right here. But Cinderace, I could see Cinderace being a little and I want to give you guys momentum ability. And Intimidate gives a little bit of wiggle room. So for the sake of ease, I'll leave this one. I'll post both versions. And I'll use both versions on the ladder. And I'll just fill this out just so we can wrap up. We're gonna use this core. Remember, step 6 is you're generally gonna forget something, so use a team on the ladder and see what you may be struggling with. So there are a couple of factors to stuff like this. One, I don't want to use the same cores every single time, so I'm obviously avoiding using Pokemon that might be technically better in this situation, but then I'd be making the same team over and over again. There are multiple ways to do something, so I want to encourage all of them. Moon Blast, it could be Calm Mind, and this team is slower, so it could be Rocks too, and then make Landorus Choice Scarf, though that doesn't really solve the Cinderace issue we were talking about. But Melmetal's natural bulk allows it to take on Cinderace pretty well. We're gonna make this heavy duty boots, which helps a lot with the wish. Doesn't always have to have speed control if you have enough bulk and you have a setup sweeper. In singles, that's just not always necessary. But as I said, there are multiple ways to do something. As you saw with the last live. So we're going to just, because I used Landorus in the last one, I'm going to have a version, and the links will be in the description down below, with a defensive Landorus as well. Currently, Clef is better. Is that for special defensive? Oops. Okay, guys, so I just noticed, because I was like filling out the EVs here, what I'm gonna give you guys something a little more creative, but a little more I think simple to use. We're gonna use Slowking plus Landorus here, because these two can pivot. They bait out very, like, Slowking with the combination of Future Sight plus Teleport, it'll give you a little more wiggle room versus the most common special attackers. You won't have Wish support. Now you can use Hippo here. That's a pretty solid one, which would provide you like just a straight up something. But again, I've just found that because I was a big I was like the biggest Hippo advocate back in ORAS. Even on the tour games, I've won with just Hippo alone, but it's not. I thought it was pretty intuitive to use. You switch, you heal, but I find newer players don't know when to properly defend, and I don't want it to, like, I want there to be an ease of use until you get to a certain point where you feel comfortable enough to where you're, okay, I know how to properly, use the Hippowdon. So we're gonna run enough speed for, again, Magearna, with the Modest Nature. We're gonna pump everything else into defense. The cool thing about it is very few of your mons, like Cinderace is annoying, but you could, if because Cinderace can only damage Landorus with Powerball. So because Slowking is no slouch, it's going to be heavy duty boots and all that stuff, you could pivot, go to Slowking, then pivot. And Mandibuzz is no slouch in and of itself. So my primary reason for Mandibuzz is that even though ghost types like Spectrier is no longer in the tier, ghost types are still real. And Dragapult could be a little more problematic than I want it to be. And Mandibuzz is just a really unique kind of mid-ground. As I said, it doesn't die to Cinderace. It doesn't. There are a lot of mid-ground mons that Mandibuzz can beat that aren't. He doesn't counter, but it doesn't lose to either. So, for example, like SD Garchomp loses to, because Scale Shot's a drop defense, foul play bops it after that, unless it's an edge variant. It helps mitigate like Specs Dragons a bit, not completely, but a little bit. In fact, it's probably something that's concerning. Like a plot Hydreigon would be really problematic. I'll test. This is why we get into perfection paralysis. So if it's enough of a concern to where the team needs to be adjusted, then that's what you do. Because a team is never built, the team building process is never complete until the team has been tested. So it's not done in the team builder. Okay, guys, so this is our rough draft so far. Now, remember, no team will ever be perfect. And there are always certain factors that go into me doing these, which as I mentioned, I don't want to continually use the same Pokemon. I do want for you guys to explore the multitude of options. Now, I could have went below OU and found some cool picks down there that would probably get the job done. But again, as we start in the beginning stages, I'm assuming, okay, well, what if somebody's watching this and they are very, very new? I don't want to add too much stuff and complication to where it's overwhelming. The point is for this to simplify it. So we did step one. We want to sweep in Gyarados often. And that our members here are supposed to aid with that. I have knockoff here. It could be U-turn, could be toxic. I have it because I'm like, there's no item removal, and I just based on what Mandibuzz typically baits in, I think that knockoff would be helpful. Now we could also not run foul play, and run U-turn. Like there's several variations, but a team is never done until it's tested. So phase one, we identified our goal. We put something together that can help support Gyarados as much as possible. Check what Pokemon and strategies. So for Gyarados to sweep, we would need to stop a Ferrothorn. We'd need to stop Ferrothorn. We need to stop Slowbro, Pex, all these things. And so we have the combination of Future Sight to help with Pex. We have, Toxic for bulky grounds. It helps with Magnezone. Tangrowth, we could run Toxic here. Like there's so many. Again, it's not done till it's tested. Now we identified what strategies can help with that, and now we're putting together a rough draft. So step 6 will happen in the live where we actually test it and see how it does. But for now, that's going to be the team building vid for today. So hopefully you guys got value, and if you're enjoying this, please show your support by leaving a like. I know sometimes you click off the video and you forget, but the like goes a long way in letting me know how you guys feel about this content, and it helps get the exposure for the algorithm so other people can get access to this content, because there are a ton of people who need this. And so I'll be doing this frequently. Subscribe if you want to see more. Join the academy, and I'll see you